Good evening, New Bedford Guy viewers. Chris Resendes back for the Chris Resendes Show. We are in the studio. I'm not in Jamaica or Thailand or wherever else we can find these wonderful vegetables behind me. Tonight we're going to be doing a topic that a lot of people have been interested in since the legalization in Massachusetts. It's been a hot topic that a lot of people want to discuss, want information on. We have some towns that are in the process of opening up these type of dispensaries and shops, as they're called, in the South Coast. We were lucky enough to tour the facility in Fairhaven, which is the first dispensary in the South Coast of Massachusetts. There are other dispensaries in the state, but you're about 40 minutes away from the closest one, up until these guys opened one up recently in Fairhaven. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's been up and running for a little bit now. The facility is top-notch. I've been through many different restaurants and doctor's offices. I can tell you one thing, this is one of the cleanest places I've ever stepped foot in. Top-notch, cared for. The guy that runs it and gave us a tour also cleans the toilets there. He's an all, he made it very known that he's not above any of the work there, and I can tell you one thing, the facility was well taken care of, well thought out. With no further ado, tonight's guests are Tim Keogh and Chappie Dickerson from Bask Cannabis in Fairhaven. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. I mean, we got a ton of people that always ask New Bedford guys, hey, what about this, or what do you want to do with this building we'll put up? And I mean, we did it the other day. There's a spot open where the old wine shop was downtown, and people were saying, what do we want to do with that?
If only it was that easy.
Dispensary. Just like that, it's going to
throw it in,
which we know is not going to happen. The dispensaries take some time and work. You guys yesterday explained to me that actually the Fairhaven building you've had rented since 13.
So we don't typically talk about it just because it's hard to wrap our head around. But yeah, so we have been leasing the building since November of 14.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
Just so people know, Tim's the guy that's talking, and Chappie's the guy that's over there that somebody called Michael Rappaport yesterday. Or also Liam Nielsen. That's my guy right there. I can see a lot of me in him.
Two of the nicer things that he's been called. So yeah. That's good.
Yeah, that's all right. Now, you guys all started off, well, Chap, you started off in Rhode Island, correct?
Yeah, under the caregiver model.
And you actually worked in growing or in any type of, what type
So
of?
we did cultivation and we did delivery. And so we had a good network of patients, about 135 patients, had 23 caregivers at one point, and we supplied all 3 dispensaries with product.
And now when you say supply, like how much product were you actually supplying?
Not enough.
Not enough, huh?
Not enough. They could always use more.
No kidding. Not to give away trade secrets, but yesterday you were pretty well stocked at the shop. You do your own selling there, and you do your own growing there.
Yep.
What's your favorite part? You like a gardener. You're like in
cultivation. I like to be able to shut the door and leave the rest of the world behind. So
yeah,
it's nice. It's quiet. I like to get there in the morning before everybody gets there, and it's silent. Yeah. All I hear is fans, wind, plants, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean it was peaceful. Tim, we were looking at, like, when I was doing the research on this, there's a lot that goes into opening up a dispensary. Regulations and rules and state boards of this and city towns of that, and explain the process to the person like me that didn't know before. This week when
it's a long process. It's the regulation of cannabis. So that's a big key word for there is regulation. So, we got involved in this. We were down in Rhode Island with a caregiver operation. Massachusetts had a ballot initiative in 2012 for medical, and we engaged an attorney to assist us with understanding if the ballot initiative passed, what the rules might look like based off of the ballot initiative. There's specific language in there. It took us a while to find an attorney to talk to us back then. So 2012, as compared to now, I mean, it's almost night and day.
That's what I called 23 attorneys, and 22 of them said, "Call me when you get in trouble." So
yeah, they weren't ready to put in the work yet.
No,
well, they didn't understand, right? It wasn't like it is now, where it's everybody's talking about it. There are law firms that are set up specifically for cannabis licenses. So we ended up having to go out to Northampton, Massachusetts, to find an attorney that would help us kind of unpack what the rules and regulations were going to look like. And that's where we started. We started because we saw the benefits that our patients in Rhode Island were having, and we said, well, if we could do this in the area that we grew up in, that would be a double win. We're all from the South Coast.
Yesterday, or the other day when I was there with Chap, he had said that every town in this region voted to allow them within towns, except with the exception of one.
Except for the town where we're both from.
Mattapoisett.
Yeah, and they actually have a citizens petition going in right now too.
So that was on the November 16 ballot for the legalization regulation that passed. Yeah, so there was, Mattapoisett was not within there.
So you go to Fairhaven. The police had to be involved, obviously. There's a checklist of departments. How does that work?
Yeah, so we unpacked the ballot initiative, and then once it passed, we kind of helped push that forward. We started working on, okay, well, let's go get a license. Mm-hmm. And again, our background from Rhode Island was focused on cultivation and processing. So we started actually having meetings with the Department of Public Health as they're trying to figure this out. Right? Because on a ballot initiative, the people say, we want medical marijuana, and they hand that over to the regulators, and the regulators go, somewhat like hot potato, like, all right, how do we figure this out? And so what they were doing largely was looking at other states, what they had done. Massachusetts was one of the first states to put in a competitive application process. That was a new level. Colorado was kind of a participation trophy. You paid $15, and there was 1,500 of them throughout the state. Massachusetts,
so it's a free-for-all. Whereas the difference in Massachusetts now is that you have to provide certain documents and certain whatever to show that you're a legitimate operation.
Right. So the state originally set out to limit the number of licenses to a minimum of 1, but no more than 5 per county. And they put the towns in charge of helping to where they site those facilities, and then also required to get letters of support from the town. So now you're working on state regulations, but also lobbying on the local level to get approval for a specific location from the Board of Selectmen or the town administrator or the mayor, and get that letter as part of your application. So there's this whole asking for permission to participate in the industry.
Yes.
And that's like the first layer of the process.
So once you get through that process, you've been approved. Now
you pop champagne, right? You get a ticket, and you're like, that's it. Like,
yeah,
where's the objective, right? Like, we're gonna go get a license. All right, well, we go and got a license, and there wasn't a roadmap. There wasn't a, how to get a license for dummies in Massachusetts, like handbook. It was just a lot of hard work and digging in and figuring stuff out, and sitting in the back of the city council chambers in New Bedford.
Like, why are you guys even here?
Yeah, until they ask, no one else is there. They're going through like boring budget hearing items, and they just stop and you're like, gentlemen, is there something that you would like to, and they're like, no, we're just trying to understand the process. And that's part of how we were able to get such good support in New Bedford. We originally applied in New Bedford and were not awarded this license. We were invited to reapply in another area of the state, and that's where we ended up in Fairhaven.
We had the 7th highest score in the state as well. So
on that initial application, there was 180 teams.
So for the competitive thing you spoke of, they rate it and they score it based on, I can imagine, a number of things.
Yeah, everything.
You guys came in 7th.
Yeah, like even trash disposal. You name it, was.
I was blown away by how these guys were like, no, you're not walking in, and I'm a pretty clean dude.
It's nothing personal.
You're going out back. I'm a bald guy, hairnet. NASA suit, and I was like floating around. I was joking with Josh when he was over there doing the camera, and I'm like, yeah, this is legit.
And Chap can talk, about that. But I mean, it's a pesticide-free facility, and that's where we take all these preventative measures to essentially exclude pests from coming in. because we don't have any defense mechanisms. If this were tomatoes or cucumbers, they would utilize pesticides on that to treat that. We don't use those.
So you have no chemicals on your product, no medicine, as you called it.
And everything goes out, is grown in that facility, and then is processed, dried, cured, and sent out to be tested. So a third-party independent testing laboratory. Give a shout out to our friends over at NCR Labs and Proverti Labs here in Massachusetts. They test everything and bring it back. So if it fails, they're testing for pesticides, heavy metals, mold, mildew, yeast.
I was just gonna make a bad joke and say you send it out to what do they got, a guy in a lab coat just smoke it in?
They got a guy in a lab coat and a bunch of very sophisticated scientific equipment that they process this through. We get not just the pass fail for the cleanliness, but we get the cannabinoid profiles, so the THC levels, CBD, CBG, CBN, and that helps us work with patients to educate them on what's in each plant, and each plant's different.
The terpene profile too. So.
Wow. I just, you're talking somebody with experience in pot, like a high school level, like, you know what I mean? I had no idea about this stuff.
It's green stuff. Sometimes maybe it's brown. It comes in a bag.
I know it was brown. Used to be $100 for it. They so I heard.
There's one option. No one checks your ID.
So now we fast forward, passes the ballot in Massachusetts. We are now only the shops that are open now are for medical usage.
Yep.
Correct.
Until they decide how much money they're going to take from citizens. Politicians, they found a money grab in this, as usual. Anybody that's watched the show knows that I really sometimes have no use for politicians, as do most people don't.
We voted on low tax, and now it's, I think, 20% already.
What we voted for, I mean, the people loudly spoke. I mean, I voted against it, I'm not going to lie. But it's here.
Yep.
People voted for it. This is America. This is how it works. Deal with it. I'm not going to sit here and cry and hold signs.
Yep.
No, it's people voted, man. Just like that's how America works.
Democracy,
and
right?
I love it. We're a republic of a constitutional republic, and I love it. And sometimes the sheep and the wolves vote together, and somebody has to. But there's protections, and that's part of the process. That being said, legislature comes in now and they say, well, we're only going to do medical. One thing that I learned yesterday that I didn't know was, all right, so now that it's a free-for-all, why would somebody need a card? And what's the advantage of having these cards? And Chappie explained to me, he said, hey man, we're going to be, if you have your card, it's tax-free.
Yeah.
Whereas recreational, gosh, what are they up to now? 22%? It sounds like between all the fees and city, town, state, and
so the town
trust that they set up.
The state's 20. The towns have an option for up to 3% additional tax. So any town that does allow one of these facilities has the ability to access the additional 2 or 3% of sales tax, and then also what they refer to as a host community agreement, which is an agreement between a cannabis business and the town for an additional up to 3%.
So there's a possibility right now, 26%, if you are not a medical marijuana user.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you are a medical marijuana user, 0. Is that correct?
That's correct. No tax on it.
No tax. So right now, I mean, it's a no-brainer, guys. $250, right? Something like that.
But it depends where you go. It's free if you go to primary care.
Yeah.
And if you go to a clinic, maybe if you go to the VA, they're not going to sign for you. You go to a clinic, it's going to be $200, $250.
What they're talking about, folks, is the certification to become a medical marijuana patient.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I'm going to go over. Mass General Laws, Chapter 369. Debilitating medical condition is necessary and it needs to be proven. Cancer, glaucoma, positive status for immunodeficiency virus, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is AIDS, Hep C, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease. I'm reading it per the law. Multiple sclerosis, and then the caveat, any other conditions as determined in writing by a qualified patient's physician, which is the chronic pain and all that stuff.
Yep.
The catch-all for the
PSD and all that stuff.
9 enumerated.
And this is when the gun guy comes in. Guys, every time you sign for a gun, it's still against the law. It says, do you use drugs? The feds say marijuana is still a drug. be honest on that form, but just know that you're using a drug according to the feds.
Does it say, are you addicted to drugs, or does it say, do you use drugs?
Use drugs.
Okay.
And you don't want to check that off because you'll fail.
Yeah.
So if you're using marijuana, don't buy a gun, and that's per the law. So you can cross that bridge however you want to cross it, but I'm just letting you know. And then in the future, if you're getting your MMJ cards, right now Massachusetts will not hold it against you, like for your firearms license. But down in the future, you're going to have people, especially now with these past shootings and the cries for gun control and better background checks. Why did you have PTSD? What symptoms did you show to get your card? That may come into play. So if you're into your Second Amendment rights and you want to have a firearm, you might want to be careful with getting these medical marijuana cards, because it may affect you down in the future passing these background checks.
Yep.
So I always caution, people about these MMJ cards, like, be careful what you're doing, especially because you may be able to smoke weed for medical reasons, but then you might have your Second Amendment rights stripped from you for mental health reasons, PTSD, and all that such. That's just me throwing in some stuff that we've discussed in our community.
I actually hear it pretty often. People are waiting. They're not going to go get a card. They're going to wait till the storefront opens.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not interested in getting a card, don't do it. But I found it fascinating that there is a huge advantage to having your card.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people. There's a process that you have to go through. I think with the passing of adult use in November of 16, the medical program really there's 46,000 registered patients in Massachusetts. There's 22 storefronts that are providing safe, regulated access to those patients. If adult use hadn't come into play, forecasts were kind of having Massachusetts reach around 120, 130,000 patients, at kind of stabilization in the medical program. You can see the numbers as they're tracking until it passes in November. So it's kind of plateaued, and I think some patients are waiting for adult use, which under the regulations from the CCC, which is the Cannabis Control Commission, is scheduled to start July 1st with a kind of fast lane for the medical marijuana operators. But there again, we get back into the regulations and the application process. You've got to go back to the town and get them to approve your medical facility for an adult use facility.
Awesome.
And so there's going to be timing associated with that. So, while the state may have their stuff together, I think we'll probably see 4 or 5 dispensaries that would be able to open on that July 1 deadline.
July 1.
Yeah. Bask in Fairhaven, will not. There's a moratorium in Fairhaven. We're working with the planning board right now to get Bask. We're work with the town to help them set up a zone for adult use, but that would have to go on to town. This is where it gets confusing on the local level. Town meeting in the fall to adopt the regulations. So you guys won't be able
to sell to non-patients,
right? So we're and we've been designed as a medical facility. That's where when you come in, we check you in through the state database in private. We move you into the next area of the dispensary, where you've got a private, where you can go sit down and have a one-on-one consultation with a patient expert.
Yep.
We have that waiting area, and then into the dispensary. So it's a big space, but it's by design so that there's comfort and.
Yeah, I found it pretty fascinating how you guys had it. The cleanliness, it just caught me off. I was like, wow, this place is immaculate. And the second part is, I did notice how the trap doors, how you can't. Security-wise, it was secure.
Yeah, it's like Fort Knox there.
Yeah.
I think it's a little overkill, but makes everybody secure.
I wanted to relay that point for your own benefit, to be quite honest with you, because there are some people who are going to sit here and say, opportunists for the wrong reason.
It's it's one of those things. Going through this whole process is fear of the unknown, right? What does a marijuana dispensary, medical or adult use, mean? In my community, right? And the benefit that we have here in the South Coast is, 2 Pequod Road, you can go drive by and take a look at it. It's
No,
honestly,
it's not a shady spot, man.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah, it was very boring, very discreet. But inside was, I'll be honest with you, I've eaten at many places I wish they were that clean. And
that goes
to you guys for
into right, the optics of your patient coming in. This is a medical facility.
Josh was running some pictures. You should see, and you get my wonderful pictures in my NASA suit and all the other stuff.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move forward now with a question. We take questions from viewers here. Barry Enos from the sends this message via the Fall River Reporter. It's a multifaceted question. Give me a second while I figure out Facebook here. She said, this is fascinating. Obviously, the feds versus the state have a difference of opinion. How is this going to affect your facilities? One. The next part of the question is health insurance. Will any health insurance cover that? But that's kind of goes back to the whole Fed thing because the feds regulate insurance. So, opening up this shop, chap. You're sitting here and you got your lawyer from way out over there, and you got the other 22 that are ready for you to get in trouble whenever you need them. What happens here with the state and the feds?
I'm not, I guess you asked me if I'm concerned about the feds.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned.
No.
I think, we're following state law.
Yeah.
I think if they came in, they're not going to come after us.
Right.
If they're going to do anything, they're going to go to California.
Yeah.
It's still kind of...
I think when you're looking at states and regulations and how they're set up, Massachusetts has got one of the most stringent application processes, background checks for everybody that's involved, disclosures on locations, so there's no, kind of on the regulated side, there's no gray areas. It's very black and white, clear cut. These are the rules.
That helps you, but it's still against the law federally.
Sure.
And, we just had an announcement by the by Sessions, the Attorney General, and by the state Attorney General, not Maura Haley.
State attorney.
The Attorney General assigns offices. The Boston office, federal attorney, also said, yeah, we're not letting it stand. And throughout the research, cultivation of 1,000 plants triggers a 10-year mandatory sentence. And if you had prior convictions of any sort, that goes to 20 years.
Which we don't. We have no prior convictions.
No. So
but
I just had to read the law. So that's the federal mandatory minimum.
There's a federal risk, right? Like this is a very risky industry. It's a calculated risk in that you can look at a market where, like California was under their medical program, where it wasn't black and white. There was a lot of self-interpretation of rules and regulations, and shops would just kind of pop up, and there was fly-by-night stuff and things going out the back door and bad actors. And from an enforcement action standpoint or perspective, if the feds are going to go kick in doors, are they going to go to a tightly regulated, limited number of license market where everything is tracked from seed to sale, or into a market where it's a bit of the wild, wild west? So I think in the 29 states now that have medical marijuana rules and regulations, Massachusetts is at the top tier of regulated.
It seems like it, because in Colorado it was a free-for-all. I mean, guys are going out there setting up pools and all kinds of stuff.
I think now it's regulated.
Yeah.
I was out there in like 08, 09-ish, and it was Wild West.
Yeah.
It grew, it swelled, and then the state stepped in, created the Marijuana Enforcement Division, and kind of tightened up things. But it did expand quite liberally.
Scotty Medeiros asks, which is a great question, as usual, Scott. How many people are employed at your facility? Quite a few.
Yeah. Right now, I think there's 14.
Yeah.
And we need probably at least 6 more.
You're going to do 6 more, plus you're also expanding your grow operation of Freetown when that opens. Yeah. So obviously you're going to have to hire much more.
There's going to be a lot more there. That's obviously in time.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely a lot more.
What I saw yesterday from the outside looking in, you're looking at a facility that not only employs the people inside. I mean, you guys are using laundromat services for all the stuff that, like the cleanliness part. Janitorial services you take care of, but all the supplies you obviously use local businesses for that. Then all the other stuff that you do in the transportation aspect and all that. you're creating a lot of, this industry is creating jobs in this region.
I mean, our general contractor, Desco Construction, Fairhaven.
That's my man Jamie right there.
Yeah. And Fairhaven subs throughout the whole construction process.
Yeah.
As I said, we're all from the area, so it's helpful to.
I didn't know you used Jamie. I would have asked him for some inside secrets before I went for the visit. That's my guy.
We swore to secrecy.
Yeah, no, he's a great dude.
Yeah, no, so a lot of that work you see in there is a credit to his team and what they pulled together.
Tell him about that door then. His ass back there. That door.
We also did a lot of lunches.
Yeah.
Like that Jake's Diner, Pasta House. Like we've spent a lot of money for lunch.
Another one of my best friends, Mario.
Well, and just taking that building. I mean, the old lottery building was in, if I'm being kind, very rough shape. And to go in there and essentially...
It was closed for 11 years.
Yeah, take it down to essentially the studs, new roof, and build it back up, new parking lot, new...
We got pictures coming across here, Damatec system and all that. You guys have a state-of-the-art facility.
Oh, so our working with CHAP and the team's experience with, cannabis cultivation and then bringing in kind of best-in-class traditional horticultural experts, working with American and Dr. Brian Core and that whole team and the planning work that's gone into Freetown. We've been able to incorporate a lot of best practices from outside of cannabis. And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing, like the environmental control system.
That was made for tomatoes, it's not really made for cannabis. It works, don't get me wrong, but none of that stuff was made for cannabis.
The industry really hasn't popped off yet, where you're going to see the next, you told me yesterday, shoot, I'd change almost everything if I could, if it was today.
2013 version.
The industry's growing, so when you're in Freetown, you get all that fun stuff after. Yeah. This would be like your small up. Now we're going to get to the hard questions, guys. We discussed this earlier. There are questions that a lot of citizens have. When I voted against it, some of these were my concerns. I did vote against it. But that being said, I had this conversation with my wife, and it was a serious conversation. I said, if we had marijuana today or alcohol today, if alcohol hadn't been legal in either one of them, when there were pros and cons brought to the table, one of them had to come up and be okayed for public consumption, marijuana would win hands down as a no-brainer because of all the adverse effects of alcohol. There are adverse effects of marijuana. I'm not going to sit here and say no. You're not going to sit here and say no. I mean, yesterday, right away, you were like, no, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in this. And I was like, oh, this guy gets it. He's a good ambassador of the industry. But that's the truth. We would have no alcohol here today. Prohibition doesn't work. We already tried that. But it's here to stay. But the people that are dragging their feet on marijuana, just accept the facts that we have alcohol, and marijuana is far outweighs the the less negative than alcohol does. But that being said, Mike, our owner of New Bedford Guy, published an article about marijuana being a gateway drug. I've been there in high school, and I saw that the guy that sells the weed also can sell you. I brought this up to you, get you all the other stuff. How do you feel about that as like a professional industry now? You're not doing recreational, I know. So this is more of a personal thing. This is guys in the community making the decisions on your business, top-notch business, totally on the up and up. I made a joke and said, hey, want to grab me a little bit for the side for my buddies? And they're like, no, that's not how it works. And it was a joke. And they were like, Chad was like, no. And I was like, dude, I'm only kidding, don't worry. But he was like, I follow the rules here, and that's awesome. We need people like you. You top-notch ambassador. I can tell you that right now, guys, from personal experience. Went there, saw the place. These guys are doing it right. But let's talk about like marijuana being a gateway drug. How do you feel about that?
I just want to let you know, I started drinking Busch Light. I had my first Busch Light at 12 years old that I stole, and that was my gateway, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, look, I think it's.
I did too. I drank first.
Yeah, it's been proven in a number of different ways. That there's very little science behind the idea that cannabis is a gateway drug. I think a lot of that is built up in people's fears about cannabis, and then getting back into the prohibition of it and the propaganda around that. So the kind of just say no programs, and I think that it's really more fear-based than anything.
I think it's foolish too, because all these kids everybody's on Ritalin and all these psych drugs, everybody's on something. And to blame it on, marijuana made you do this, made you do that is foolish.
I mean, we see it, in states where they adopt medical programs, a major decrease in opioid-related overdoses.
Yeah.
And I think we look at it from our perspective as an exit drug more so than a gateway drug.
I was going to save this for later, but we can segue to that being said with your last point. We'll go back to some of the negative stuff too, because I want to bring all aspects for you guys to see and for the community. Hey, this place offers this, but they're aware of all this stuff. There's some new research where people are using marijuana for rehab facilities. Out in Maine is a program like strictly cannabis-based detox for people on opioids. A lot of people know that watch the show and all about killing this epidemic we have here. And that being said, if there is proof and it does work, cannabis-based rehab detox. Do you guys know anything about that? Have you read into it? Have you studied it?
I've seen a few things on, online. Vice did a little bit of a survey on it, or a special on it.
Yeah.
That was an interesting concept. I mean, but even just anecdotally, we had a tour earlier this week. A woman came in, and she's a blogger, but she had open heart surgery. And
she actually was leaving when we were
yeah. And I don't know if you saw her story today. We actually shared it on our Facebook page, but it's like, very powerful stuff. She, with an open heart surgery, the narcotics that she was prescribed were, making her nauseous. So, trying to throw up when your chest has been split open is not really an option.
No.
You think about I gave the bad example of like sneezing with a broken rib. That's probably like a third of what she experienced.
Yeah, she's...
and cannabis was her source of getting her appetite back, and your appetite gives you energy, and the energy helps you heal faster. We don't have FDA studies because it's illegal. We don't have institutions that have studied this plant, but the stories there.
Department of Public Health, their version of it, I don't know, whatever the acronym is out in Colorado, has done quite a few studies.
Yep. And I think through, I believe it was through Dr. Sue Sisley, or at least it was initially, and she was doing some studies out there. But we're starting to unpack it on a state level, and this gets back to the state-federal, kind of conflict. What we're seeing are these kind of mirroring FDA tracks for research. So Massachusetts, under the new rules, has a medical marijuana or a cannabis research license.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania has a great program where it is following an FDA track, obviously not with the feds, but meeting those same CGMP standards, and they're working with hospitals and the universities down in Pennsylvania. So we're just at the beginning. I mean, this is like the first inning of this game, and I think it's going to go into extra innings.
We're at our infancy, especially in this state. Like I said, they do have studies. National Institute for Health published in May of 2013 in the American Journal of Addiction found that those who consume cannabis during opioid withdrawal experience less severe withdrawals. It's a study, and then they cross over to either Suboxone or Vivitrol or Methadone afterwards.
And a big thing that people don't understand too is like they think, okay, medical marijuana, this is doctor's going to prescribe you to take a joint and take it home and smoke it, and some patients do that.
No.
But a lot of them are shifting over towards the infused products. So we talk about lotions and capsules and tinctures, transdermal patches, other delivery devices that provide access to the benefits of cannabis without actually having to smoke it. And I think that's going to help open up even more people to it, because people don't want to smoke.
And you had the the Cheech and Chong for the past 20 years, all the Friday.
I think that's one
of
my
favorites. And that's, you have to admit, like, there is a stigma behind it.
Certainly.
And there's fact behind it too. You and I discussed this. I don't care. You want to smoke pot, smoke pot. You want to date a guy, do whatever you want. We were talking a lot about personal rights and
personal
you
freedom.
do you, personal freedom, and I do me. And as long as it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect you. But it does affect some of us. And the reason I speak of this is a lot of the guys that still consume marijuana recreationally. You know, it's kind of an accepted fact that you can't go out and take 3 shots on your lunch break. But what we're seeing is a lot of people sitting there smoking bones for bone rides, driving at break at work to come in stinking like pot. That's where your industry is going to run into some hardships, I think. The stigma will not go away because people are using it irresponsibly, and it's more acceptable. I mean, admit it. We all know, like, hey, that dude's boozing at work. He's got to go.
Yeah. He's getting fired right away.
He's getting fired right away. But with the weed, like now that it's recreational, it's legal. How do you feel about that? As an industry, as a guy in the industry, chap, I liked your take on it. I really enjoyed like the fact that you were being honest and coming from a guy that's actually livelihood depends on this. You were like, no, man, go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah, I think we might have said something like there's idiots everywhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not okay to smoke and drive. You know, it's not okay to go to work high, just like you wouldn't go to work drunk. And for me, it's unacceptable. And I think there needs to be some kind of gauge eventually, whether it's a breathalyzer or what, to see what state of mind you're in, if you're high or not. So yeah.
I think like
gotta be abused.
Yeah, the studies that are happening on the scientific level. A big part of that too is focused on like impairment.
Yeah.
How do we?
There is an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of shut it down right away, and you're right because after we met, I went back and looked at it. But initially, I read some stuff where accidents have skyrocketed in Colorado, driving accidents since. But the studies are skewed, like you said. You told me, and I went back, and I'm going to be honest with you. I found a lot of stuff where. Now, how do you know? You can't tell if the guy smoked an hour before. You can't tell if he was texting. You can't tell. Like, accidents are up again because of texting.
Yeah.
So, does that coincide with the legalization? So it's kind of tough. So, I came out and I said, but the accidents are up. And you're like, well, that's skewed. Yeah. I went back, did my due diligence. You are correct, chap. There's no real determination on whether or not the marijuana actually is the issue.
Just because they got in an accident, they might have smoked 45 days earlier, so you never know what it's going to be.
Yeah, but you do advocate responsible consumption of marijuana at any time.
What was passed was, adult use, recreational, and that's for responsible adults, to make responsible adult decisions.
I like this guy. He moves me right to my next questions and my next points. Tim brings up adult. There are also studies, guys, parents that say, hey, it's all right, There are usages of cannabis for seizures and stuff like that, which are proven to work. I did read that. For children, too, especially. But also, the use of cannabis in developing teens has been scientifically proven to hinder brain development. The e-cannabinoid signaling systems get eliminated by the CB1 receptors from neurons and like a bunch of stuff that I'm not even going to make believe I understand. But there are studies out there that say that kids at a certain age should not be taking any type of cannabis unless it's for medicinal use the right way. The recreational stuff can alter, and it actually has been shown if you're prone to psychiatric stuff like schizophrenia, it may actually kick it in faster than it normally would, or if you're already apt to having the schizophrenia, it can set it off. So just like you said, adult usage here, and this is a couple of responsible guys opening up a facility locally, and they are advocating for responsible usage of the marijuana.
It's not for everybody. Some people react not too good to it. So,
no, there are people. Somebody said overdose. You never heard of a guy overdose, and that's a lie because there are people that do overdose on pot. I mean, you're not going to die on it. It's not like the overdose where you're gonna
go take a nap.
Yeah, but you can't function. That's an overdose. There is such a thing as an overdose.
Yeah, and again, I think it gets back to you can't. you're not going to die.
No.
It's a non-toxic substance. It's a plant. These are natural products that are being produced. But yeah, you can overconsume. You know, the state just set limits for the unit size for products coming out of the regulated market, so medical and adult use, at 5 milligrams.
Yeah.
You know, one of the big issues out in Colorado early on when they switched from medical,
pounds, weren't they?
well, no, it was really more on the infused products.
Yeah.
And so you would get a cookie.
Oh, I guess you say so. The cookies and the edibles.
It'd be a 300 milligram cookie, and you're supposed to break off.
And people
Take
just
a nibble
the whole cookie,
right? And they'd eat a
who
piece.
eats half a cookie?
Right, like
normally,
that.
never mind if you bought it for that reason.
You eat a little piece of it.
I was at Marisol's today with my kid, and I slammed 2. So imagine if there was 300 milligrams of cannabinoids in it. Pot's not as half as, but Tiffany Silva, pot's not half as bad as other drugs. Tiffany, you're 100% right. We have a huge issue in this country. Not to digress, but I will. A lot of these mass shooters are taking these drugs and then stop taking them, and this whole whatever is not working correctly. We do have a huge problem. Big Pharma is definitely an issue. Shoot, you guys throw away a lot of the product. I saw a lot of like, trimming and all that, but you must a lot of waste on the hemp plant that could be used for other industries. Hemp's been known to make great oils and all that stuff without the cannabis part of it, just the hemp itself. Materials such as clothing and stronger ropes and all that stuff. So there is an industry that may grow because of this, no pun intended, the legalization. If the feds would have legalized this, I mean, look at what they did with corn. They're subsidizing corn farms crazily. I mean, my wife's from down south, we go down south, and it's like they ruined the whole industry of tobacco to grow corn, and now the corn's useless, and it's, you know, we're paying for it. This hemp, if we were growing it, and we were taxing it.
Yeah, it's a whole other, you know, industry almost by itself.
Yeah.
You know, the hemp, there's hemp rules that are going through the Department of Agriculture in Massachusetts under legalization. It certainly lends itself to outdoor production, where you wouldn't necessarily want to get into, you know, designing and developing a state-of-the-art, clean, indoor cultivation facility to grow hemp, because you could grow it so robustly out in fields.
It's a pretty hardy plant, right?
Very hardy. So that's when you think of hemp, it's rudavalis.
Yeah, I don't butcher that one.
And what we're growing is Cannabis Sativa. So the rudavalis plant is a long, tall, stretchy thing. You'll see the old-timey pictures of guys standing in front of long, big trees of this stuff. Almost looks like bamboo.
Yeah.
And that's where you're getting a lot of those fibers.
Okay.
A lot of that non-psychoactive CBD oil.
I know that Chabby would not want any of those plants near his.
No.
He's like,
A lot of
cross-pollen.
A lot of pollen. So, you know,
My boy is like very, he's like, hey, stay away if you've been around this stuff. Billy had asked this, as well as Scott, basically. Billy King and Scott Souza. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then Scott, kind of to piggyback that question, are you able to keep up with demand? So the 5 year when this blows up.
So, you know, I think out of this facility in Fairhaven, I don't think we keep up with demand. You know, we're small, we're limited by production.
Because of the size of your
Because of the
facility.
size of the facility. We moved to Freetown, different story.
What's Freetown? So the viewers that don't know, let me actually just interrupt. Guys, we're here today with Tim and Chappie from Bask Cannabis in Fairhaven, the South Coast's first facility for cannabis dispensing. Right now it's strictly medical, which per Mass law, but they're here tonight to discuss their shop and their dispensary. It's not a shop, it's a dispensary, and the processes and needs that they fulfill in the South Coast. I'm sorry to interrupt. You were saying that the grow facility in Freetown. What is the Freetown facility that everybody keeps talking about?
It's the American project. You should talk about it.
So my day job. So Chap and I set out in 2012 to get a license to grow, process, and distribute cannabis under the medical program in Massachusetts, and that's what we did in Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Chap's the CEO of Bask Inc. I'm the CEO of American Inc., which is a publicly traded company that is
This guy's always on top of getting me to my next question.
designing and developing state-of-the-art cultivation infrastructure. So I moved out to Colorado in 2014 after getting through the application process here in Massachusetts, and started a company that is building infrastructure. We unwrapped pretty quickly that indoor small-scale production wasn't the path forward, right? So 5 years out, what do we want to be in, or what do we want to be building? And it became very clear that it was large-scale greenhouse. Capturing natural sunlight, getting away from a lot of the inefficiencies of indoor cultivation. You know, those lights that you saw are on, 24 hours a day. ACs are pumped in there to cool.
Carbon filters.
Carbon filtration, dehumidification,
I love
CO2.
it. Nobody smelled me, so it was a good thing.
Right? Yeah, like just layers and layers and layers of input to grow a plant, right? And I think in the future, we may regress back to that when we're on Mars and we're having to create these controlled environments. But in the meantime, we have the opportunity for cannabis to grab natural sunlight, grab traditional horticultural experts, and say, like, how do we grow this at scale? So once we unpack that, and the team that we pulled together said, we were looking for large-scale projects, I put my hand up and said, I know where there's 50 acres of land in Massachusetts that's zoned for medical marijuana activity. We sat down with the board of directors and the development team and with American, and they said, go get it. So in 2015, we put the 50 acres in Freetown under contract. Boston Beer owned it. So it was owned by the maker of Sam Adams. They had planned to do a brewery there. They had water, they had power, natural gas, and then they kind of walked away from it at the last minute.
Basically made for you.
Yeah, and so we purchased it in November, but we took it through all the entitlements, master planned it, and put on, at full build out will be 987,000 square feet of cultivation and processing infrastructure.
1 million square feet. So you guys will be the mini Amazon fulfillment center of Massachusetts.
It's right behind us.
They're 1.3 million. So the first change order on the Amazon project was a 300,000 square foot mezzanine. So they jumped well ahead of us. But
he was talking about a second level that he needed at this facility. So you might have to think about that.
Never enough space until we get into a project like that. But it's scalable.
It's like having kids. Now you talked about a publicly traded company, American.
Yeah.
James Capra asked, what advice would you give those who may be interested in investing in the cannabis stock market? What company should we invest in? Well, it's kind of insider trading. He's going to give you the answer right now. And can we invest in your company in the stock market?
So American is a publicly traded company. We trade on the OTCQB, which is an over-the-counter exchange. We've been trading since July of 2014. We're building one of the country's largest and most sophisticated cultivation facilities. 20 minutes down the road, you can drive by the site. Fall River
that you own if you have stock.
That's correct.
Yeah,
so
cool.
you're and one of the benefits of being public is so can we invest in a dispensary or should we get a delivery service? And a lot of these things are very capital intensive, right? Like hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. As a public company, you can buy one share and participate in the economics of the cannabis industry. So we look at being public as not only being transparent and responsible and fully reporting and audited, but also inclusive for those that want to participate and vote with their dollars. So
now
we trade under the symbol ACAN.
ACAN.
Yeah.
Nevitz Soridium. It's something I know how it works, but his comment is alcohol companies also stress drink responsibly. Is that a message that you guys, I saw it yesterday, but are going to publicly lead the way, being that you're
Education. Yeah, I think a lot of education material, a lot of education happens inside the dispensary level because, those are where our patients come in and we can interact with them. As we get into a more robust adult use market, again, that point of sale, there is a lot of education. Like the number one thing we talk about is, start slow, and go, start low and go slow. So that 5 milligram edible, don't eat it and wait 15 minutes and then
Don't
have
eat
another
it.
one and then wait, it's not had no effect, toughest guy in the room, until it does, and it will eventually catch up with you. And
But the whole driving stuff and the whole kid stuff. keep it away from kids? Because I know that this guy that said it, he's got a young kid who I love. He's a good little kid, and he's, as a father, myself too. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't want my kids smoking pot in high school. I don't. Nothing good comes out of it. Been there, done that. So how do you push that on the kids? Because you said it yourself. Responsible adults. Responsible adults. It was something that I didn't force you to say. You come right out and say this is meant for responsible adults. How do you keep it from your kids?
I think you treat it like a prescription. And so one, educating at the point of sale. Everything that comes out of a regulated dispensary comes out in child-proof packaging. If you didn't get a chance to play around with it, legit, some finger ninja maneuvers to get some of those extra tags. And then putting it away and being responsible about it, because whether it's an edible product or if it's flour for consuming, it's just not something you want to have laying around. You treat it like Tide Pods or anything else, where you've got young children and then certainly adolescents.
I got a buddy of mine that did a Michael Jackson meme, the popcorn, but he got suspended from Facebook for like 3 days for posting that Michael Jackson eating Tide Pods. Speaking of Tide Pods, Scotty Medeiros asks, I know you're a medical facility, but do they offer products such as CBD oils over the counter that can be purchased such like as a wellness store would?
So in order to gain access into the building, you've got to be a medical marijuana card holder. And so we don't have any products available that would be considered over the counter, just by nature of the facility and its design and layout.
Any plans on changing that?
I think we do have CBD products. We are adding to those. I think we've got some exciting products and relationships that we're building out here over the next couple weeks. But until there would be a major shift in regulations as it relates to how people access our facility, I don't think we have any short-term plans to do more of an OTC wellness store. It'd have to be a separate storefront.
We got 8 minutes until Josh makes me give him an edible or something to stay on the producer's chair right there. You guys were gracious enough to give me a nice tour. Any questions I've had, Tim, you've gone back and forth with me, you rescheduled, you were great for us and helping us. So I want to give you a little bit of time to share anything that I missed or that you want to put out there for our viewers. Both of you, anything you want to put in, anything you want to add for our viewers to discuss, or
we rock some straight plugs. Is that?
I don't care. I have guests that want to do fundraisers, and you guys have a business. I mean,
I'd just like to point out, like our business. A lot of people think, oh, this is corporate marijuana. This is corporate. Like, it's my family and closest friends. Like, it's my cousins, my uncles, my stepfather, my fiance works there. So it's not like we're some big corporate company. We're from Mattapoisett, Fairhaven, Acushnet, New Bedford. So
local owned, local run.
Yeah, we're here and we're not going anywhere.
You got the cousin that can't get another job. You had to hire him.
Few of those.
How about you?
So Bask Inc., 2 Pequod Road. It's the old lottery building. Website is cometobask.com. We're all over social media. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. What we're really trying to do right now is just generate awareness. I think as Chris mentioned earlier, it's just a lot of people aren't even aware that there's a dispensary open. The closest one to us prior to us opening was up in Bridgewater, then they're up into Brockton, and then into Boston. So there's 22 throughout the state.
40 minutes or about roughly is the closest one around.
Yeah, but we're open Tuesday through Saturday, so during weekdays, 10 to 6. On Saturday we're doing 10 to 4. But check the website, call us. We're there 7 days a week.
I may have misinformed people yesterday, but you corrected me today, and I want to let everybody know you are not one of the 2 people that are going to open up in Dartmouth. Or you were, but you don't plan on it.
Yeah, so we've got a second application that's filed, that's in with the state. We're still working through the second phase of that, and I think we just got caught up with opening the first one and getting Freetown going. So we kind of have taken a step back from Dartmouth at this point. They've got another operator that is proposing to go in there. So hopefully that works out for the town of Dartmouth. I know they're
They're pretty arms open.
Yeah, I think that they've been left at the altar a couple times, and they're looking at the host community agreement. They're looking at the potential tax revenue. So hopefully that does work out. I don't know what the status is in New Bedford. I'm at a place at Marion, and there's one in Wareham that is maybe opening by the end of the year.
Seems like New Bedford should be leading the charge. Sometimes they don't, unfortunately.
City Council was always great to us.
Businessman right there. I love it.
Joe Lopes. We trump for Joe Lopes.
Listen, Joe Lopes is a good dude.
I
saw him the other day. Joe's a good guy.
My wife.
I'd like to see Joe someday run for higher office, to be honest with you.
She reminds me of standing out. So that was November of 13.
Yeah.
At the corner there by the laundromat.
Yeah.
In his ward, and it was probably like -5 degrees.
I left a little upset yesterday with you, man. The dude that was there, Torrin, had a 20% off coupon code if you mentioned his site, but you didn't give me any coupon codes.
Sorry about that,
man.
I got some of the cat.
We're doing 20% off for first-time visitors. So if you haven't been in yet, come in. We'll get you set up with the state. I'm sorry. We'll make sure that you're approved with the state. And if it's your first time, we're doing 20% off there.
Perfect. Scott Souza says, besides saying nice job, Chris. Thanks, Scott. See, I got friends and stuff that have to bump up my ego. He had asked, is there any way that anybody without a medical marijuana card could actually look at the facility? Scott's comes from the Mr. Fahaven family. You probably know the family. They're down on the net.
Yeah.
Their family knows everybody. So he's curious to see if there's any way to see the facility if you don't have a card.
It's tough to please everybody. But if he gave me a call, I could see what I can do.
I'll hook you up, Scott. I'll pass your number on to him. He's a good guy.
Education's part. It's actually
benefits
good to show everybody.
Yeah, it benefits.
Hey, this is what's going on here.
I walked in yesterday, chat, and told him. I said it changed my outlook a little bit. Because I walked in, I'm like, let's go see this.
It has an
weed
effect.
spot. You know what I mean? And like I said, man, from the beginning, I was impressed the way I was treated, and you treated the other guy the same. I saw it wasn't like I got any special treatment because you guys are going to be on today. You said, oh, I give tours out all the time to people, and
not all the time.
All right, sorry, I don't
want
to. VIPs, you're on the VIP list, yeah.
People banging on your doors. I want to have the weed background like Chris.
That's a great background.
But you did. You did show me, and you opened up my eyes that you did have a responsible and clean and top-notch facility. It was top-notch. And one thing you didn't do today was you didn't mess up on camera. My boy Chad is like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I said, listen, dude, I've only sworn once on camera, so if I can do it, you can do it. I'm a guy's guy, and sometimes it gets out of hand with me. And
you caught me at the end of the day, so I'm on my sleep mode.
That's good. All right, gentlemen, I know you got to run. Again, sorry for your situation. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yep.
Hopefully it works out and we can in the future visit with you again. I really did enjoy sitting down with you guys and learning a lot. You are here to stay, so it's time people learn and accept it and be happy that two guys that, from what I'm a pretty good judge of character, are doing it for the right reasons. Business, obviously, but they're responsible about it, and that's all you can ask for. If you're against it, it's not going away. So just be happy that you found two responsible individuals that are going to be good neighbors.
Yep.
Cannot smell outside the facility. One thing, you had 20 carbon cleaners. It was like everywhere I went, these stacks just to keep it. You're guys that don't promote any adolescent usage. Recreational wise, they do promote medicinal usage for juveniles, but responsibly. You got good ambassadors for their business because they also don't believe you should be drinking and driving. They don't believe you should be smoking and driving or any of this stuff. That you were responsible, and I commend you for that. Hopefully, I answered all your questions. If I didn't, and you want to reach out to these guys, they're at Bask. What's your website?
So come to Bask. So COMETOBASK or info@come to Bask. Feel free to shoot an email out, and we'll get it to the right person. Okay, very good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Really appreciate what your viewership and your time. Tim's got to run. He's got to run to the airport. Again, next week, I have Sheriff Tom Hodgson on. Any questions you want to ask of the sheriff, email me or watch and ask when we get on next week. He's controversial at times. He's a straight shooter and he believes what he believes. That's one thing about the sheriff. I do not have to provide any information on what I will be asking. And I ask him why he does that, and he says because my answer is going to be the same no matter who's asking or what the question is. So, straight shooter. He's going to tell you how he feels, and that's guaranteed every time. And we did bump him to next week for the weed guys. So
yeah.
Chap was happy about that. See you next week. Thank you for your viewership, everybody. We're going to leave you from the weed to the food on that side. Josh, roll our. Who's our sponsor this week? Knuckleheads. I did the spotlight with Knuckleheads. They got the best food: fried fish, fried scallops. But we had the doctor on talking about heart disease.
No kidding.
And our commercial was Knuckleheads. Guys, head down to Knuckleheads for some awesome fresh food. They got fried food platters, steaks, the good atmosphere, locally owned and locally run business. Support all those who support you. These guys are involved in baseball teams, all kinds of stuff in the region. Good group of guys over at Knuckleheads. Visit them and watch the commercial after the show, and you'll see some good food, and you might stop by this weekend and have some. Thank you all for your viewership. Appreciate you as always. New Bedford Guide, and all of our other guys, Fairhaven, Dartmouth, Fall River Guide. Appreciate your viewership. See you next week. God bless.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I'm one of the managers here down at Knuckleheads Bar and Grill. Knuckleheads has been in business for over 14 years, and we have some of the freshest seafood around. Here are some of our options that we have. Here is our amazing fisherman's platter that has fish, scallops, clams, shrimp, oysters, onion rings, and French fries. It is so big, I have never seen two people finish this platter. If fried seafood is not your thing, we also offer alternatives such as baked scrod with broccoli and rice. If seafood's not your thing, we also have amazing burgers. You can get it in two sizes, a half pound or this 1 pound burger, and they are delicious. We also have amazing appetizers such as our homemade linguiça and cheese egg rolls. We have great food specials throughout the week, which you can find on our Facebook page, and we also have great entertainment on Friday and Saturday nights with no cover charge. Thank you all for watching us, and hope to see you soon down at Knuckleheads, where everyone knows one.